Welcome to the Lunchtime lecture on this nice chilly December day. We always have an intimate crowd in the busy Advent season, so I do welcome you all very warmly. I notice the topic it's the longest topic in our entire series, the great remake of the home church, 1912, 1913, a few brief words. Why they said that is beyond me. However, they knew we need to start at the beginning of the home church in order to refresh our memory as to what it was like before the great renovation 100 years ago. Of course, we recognize Frederick William Marshall, the administrator of our church lands, which we called Wachovia. Back in the late 1700s and early 1800s, Frederick William Marshall also had a knack for being an architect, of designing, for example, the Brothers' House here in Salem, the Boys' School, the Combined House, I think the Sisters' House as well, and in the late 1790s, the Home Moravian Church, which of course was not called Home Moravian Church at the time, but just the Salem Church. Here's his design, looking at it from the south side, and we notice, look at those nice little dainty windows that we have here. This is the entrance, south side entrance is the sisters' entrance into the church building. Let's get a further idea of what it was like at the time. Sisters' entrance coming in here, everybody pretty much says that this portion was not built, but Mary Creech and I could see in Grunewald's picture of it in the 1840s. Yes, indeed, there it was. It was used as a small nursery for the infants. Let's see, other things different on the north wall. In the center of the north wall was the pastor's chairs and liturgist table, as it was called at the time, and over on the balcony on the west wall was our organ, built by David Tannenberg and played in the very first service of Home Moravian Church on November 9th, 1800, the opening and dedication of the Salem Church. Balcony went like this, sort of in a U-shaped fashion. And that pretty much sums up the church at the time. Here we go. The west facade is very familiar with us. It includes, in this drawing, it includes the balcony, which rotted out, I think in the 1830s, and has since been replaced in the 1960s. So we're all acquainted with the balcony on the home church. Those nice little dainty windows again. We'll talk about that more. And there it is, a photograph from 1900, precisely. We can tell because Bill Van Hoven pointed out that up in the balcony, in the belfry, during the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the church, lights were strung up giving the date, the years, 1800 facing this way, 1900 facing that way. Let's see, Frederick William Marshall's nice, dainty windows, and then there are these elongated ones. Where did they come from? They weren't in Frederick William Marshall's view of the south side of the church. They were like this. We can thank this man for those elongated windows. Elias Alexander Vogler. E.A. Vogler was Salem's jack of all trades. He could do most anything you can think of. He was treasurer of the Moravian Church, Southern Province, briefly, fortunately, I think for both the province and himself. Let's see, he was an architect. He designed the brick house of Frank Schaffner on Main Street, the one with the mansard roof. After the war, you know which war, as Reconstruction settled in, he determined to build a shoe factory in Salem, right there on the square, in a building that he constructed, or designed and constructed, and we call today the Moravian Book and Gift Shop, and he promptly went bankrupt. But in 1870, E.A. Vogler took on the opportunity of designing and overseeing a remake of the Salem church, completely redoing it from its original of Frederick William Marshall in 1800. This 1870 renovation turned things a different way. Let's look and see what he had to deal with. This is before renovation. Now let's see. There's the west door in the vestibule. The Brethren's entrance, the sisters' entrance is down here on the south entrance. The pastor's chairs have been replaced by a rather high pulpit so people can see from way down here. But here again are those nice short windows of Frederick William Marshall's design. These are on the north side. This is the south side. Now, I said brethren's and sisters' side. Brethren sat on the west side. Sisters sat on the east side, and we have Julius Lineback to thank for a detailed description of exactly how we sat in home church, even up into 1870. We sat with our choirs, Julius Lineback declared, and it's very interesting. The little boys' choir, little girls' choir, older boys' choir, older girls' choir, married brethren, married sisters, and in the back, those who are not going to pay attention to anything at all, single brethren and single sisters. But Julius Lineback assures us that there were enough mothers and fathers of Israel, not to mention the choir leaders, to assure there was no note passing back and forth. That's the old design that Brother Vogler had to work on, including these very, very thick square piers for the balcony. And yes, the organ sitting there.
What's this over here on this side?
That's the pulpit.
No, go down to the curve. Over.
I'm sorry, Lou. We'll have to discuss that at another occasion. Here is Frederick William Marshall's design. What E.A. Vogler did was to take the pulpit and stick it over here on the east wall. He made a U-shaped balcony all the way around and had doors cut in the balcony here and here for a 3-story serving rooms and pastor's study that he had constructed over here on the east side of the church building. They're still there today. That's most of Brother Vogler's renovation. Let's see. Here's what it looked like. And yes, the upstairs doors cut in, and the downstairs, you didn't have the doors going out to nothing, which is what Frederick William Marshall had. Back to the serving room and the pastor's study on the east side. Let's see. There it is facing the pulpit area. And a second view from the balcony with the choir, with the organ back behind the choir. Choir sitting here, and the rather, I think, kind of narrow gallery area going back to the serving rooms. And let's see, one more view looking west from the pulpit to from the east from the looking west from the pulpit. Here the central door, which was the Brethren's door in earlier times, and there's the organ. What's missing in this picture? Let's see, right in here. Right in here. What's missing?
Well, the aisle down there.
A center aisle.
Yeah. Well, these are no longer movable benches either.
My dear brethren of elders and trustees, we need to have a meeting of the communicant members real quick, 3 days before the church is open for Christmas Eve, 1800, for the first use of this church building. We need to have a meeting of all communicant members. What do you mean? I said, well, did the church council do well enough? That's the brethren of the congregation. Oh no, we need to have the sisters included. All communicant members had better attend this meeting. Why? I'll tell you. Meeting held. Do you mind if you sit with your family from now on? There is no center aisle. Single-handedly, E.A. Vogler abolished the choir sitting in home church in 1870. It did not die willingly because, yes, several years later, Brother Al Erda, in the church diary wrote that the sisters' side seems to be better attended than the brethren side, as usual. It was quite obvious that despite no center aisle, some of these single sisters, I don't know where they sat, here or here, much preferred to sit with each other than with, the single brethren. And so the habit of sitting in choir lingered a few years longer until finally families did begin sitting together. Now let's see, one final thing. You notice these little columns too. That's something that we will see later on. They replaced the boxy columns here. And now, one more thing that E.A. Vogler did, and that was to take Frederick William Marshall's windows and lower them by lowering the sills, the granite sills, 3 feet. Now there's something interesting about these windows here. This is that picture from 1900, and you notice stained glass windows. They were not installed in E.A. Vogler's renovation. They had sort of a frosted glass installed. These are these stained glass windows were installed in 1895. Bill Van Hoven discovered that in the church diaries, and they went all the way up the entire length of the drawn-out windows here. Instantly, home church discovered, congregation, board of elders, board of trustees, and especially the minister, discovered it's dark in here. Compromise, only a couple of years later, was take out the top part of the windows and you can have the sunlight streaming through from the south side into the balcony and have the stained glass windows lower down. Now let's see. only a few years later, well, E.A. Vogler's renovation was 70 years after the church was built. Constructed by Frederick William Marshall and had its first service in November of 1800. E.A. Vogler's renovation was in 1870, but only 43 years later, we had the Great Renovation. Why? I think I've come across two, I'm certain, reasons for the renovation, and most likely, we hate to say it, a third. It did not spring up overnight, the Great Renovation of 1912 and 1913. There was work on it long beforehand. 1908, June 1st, Board of Elders. Brother Runthaler stated he would probably retire from the pastorate of Home Church ere a great while. Oh, I love that. Next paragraph. The subject of church improvement and renovation was discussed at length. 1808, June. Next week, June 8th. Several members of the church renovating committee, where'd they come from, happened to be at the time of our meeting in the church building in consultation, and so we asked them to join the elders for discussion. The committee is anxious to proceed with the work at once for better accommodation of the Sunday school. Reason number one. They thought they better hold a joint meeting immediately, next week, June 15th, 1908. Joint meeting, the changes would almost necessarily involve the supplying of Home Church with additional outfit for Sunday school and other purposes. The fact being that while the Home Church had planted and nurtured to maturity her filials, sister congregation, East Salem, Fairview, Christ Church, Calvary Church, she had neglected to supply her own needs in this respect. And already by June 15th, 1908, they were thinking about consulting a competent architect to examine the church and come up with a good idea. And Brother John Fries, that's Miss Adelaide Fries's father, had already been on a tour to the north consulting architects. This is going pell-mell pace for Home Church. Now, in 1909, January 20th, this evening, a members' meeting, that means including the sisters, they didn't call it communicant members as E.A. Vogler said, but members' meeting, remember the church council still was brethren only. The amendment to the Constitution had not yet gone into effect. Church members' meeting was held for the purpose of gaining expression of opinion in regard to the improvements of the church, etc. There was attendance of about 100 and considerable interest was shown, but there were few men present. This isn't going to go far, is it? Friday, March 26, at 4 o'clock, the Committee on Church Improvements decided to recommend to the congregation the purchase of a new organ and the rearrangement of the seating of the church. Somebody already had a plan there. Reason number two, a new organ. Monday, August 16th, elders and trustees met and read a letter from dear Hannah Haynes Severs, John Severs' widow, in which she asked to be permitted to give to Home Church $5,000 for a new organ. The board accepted the gift, and it comes at a most opportune time. J. Kenneth Fall is writing the diary at the time, and removes the one obstacle which seemed to stand in the way of our church improvements. Well, not all obstacles. 1910 had a very May 17th held a very important members' meeting this evening, at which the building committee submitted plans for the purpose of church improvements. The plans for the enlargement of the church and erection of a Sunday school building, it seems to be just about what we expect now, were adopted. The meeting was enthusiastic, and the most encouraging spirit which we have yet had was in evidence. Sunday, June the 5th, this is a rainy Sunday, and services were held in Memorial Hall, the Salem College's new building across Church Street, on account of the broken down condition of the organ. And yes, that, a couple of Sundays later, the congregational singing over in Memorial Hall was hearty, and many are being persuaded that the new organ should be placed in front of the congregation instead of back behind. Friday, June 24th, the last day. The old organ, for which more than a century has done such splendid service in home church, was removed today, 1910, not 1912, not any other year, and stored in the garret of the Salem Boys' School. Now you know how I found out where they were to tell other people. You can find those pipes in the attic of a new boys' school. For some months, it had been realized that it had served its day and could not again be repaired satisfactorily. Sunday, November 6th, 1910. We had most happy to be in the church again for our services using the organ formerly used in the Episcopal Church. The Episcopalians are getting in on this. It might be Methodist Episcopal, I'm not too sure. 1911, January 31st, building committee met and approved the general specification for the church improvements, but yet it's doubtful with an endowment proposal going on with Salem College. They were raising money at the same time. Tuesday, September 5th. This evening, a most important members' meeting again was held considering the subject of church improvements, largely attended and filled with interest. The action of the May 17th, 1910, when the building committee submitted the plans and agreed to them, was reconsidered, and after a free discussion of various places, members voted to leave the old church. This is E.A. Vogler's design, facing the pulpit on the east wall. Leave the church of the old church in pretty much the same position as at present, except that the organ be placed in the rear of the present pulpit. Can you imagine that? And a modern Sunday school building erected on the north side of the church. The vote of the members was made unanimous. How did we come up with... And last sentence of the entrance, all details of the working out of the plan are left to guess who? The building committee, which already had its plan. Now, Wednesday, October 25th, 1911, we had another discussion of church plans. Very little progress was made, declares J. Kenneth Fall. In fact, the improvements seem to be further off than at any time in recent months. What happened? 1912, the building, February 26, the building committee, after months of delay, finally united on Plan Number 6 as the best for the alterations and additions. This plan, though expensive, will make an admirable church plant and give every facility for church work after the most modern modern methods. It's a relief to have it settled, though it must be submitted to the members for a final action. They did some politicking. They even got a newsletter out. Sunday, August 4th, the day we feel, has brought us past the crisis which has been impending ever since church improvements were definitely undertaken. The morning service was followed, that was Sunday, morning service was followed by members' meeting preparatory to the meeting. The messenger newsletter had carried plans out to every house, thus giving the members an opportunity to familiarize themselves with the ideas determined upon by the building committee. And even individual notices were given to the recalcitrants. I guess that would have included me. Let's see. Brother Freeze, F.H. Freeze, spoke for the building committee. Brother E.T. Mickey Sr. followed for the trustees and said, well, if you're going to build it, you're going to have a voluntary donation. Don't expect a dime from guess who? Trustees. The matter of further proceeding was then left to the heads of the members, whereupon motion made, seconded, unanimously carried out, that trusting in God to prosper us, we, his servants, would rise up and build. That was the decision, Sunday, August 4th, 1912, to proceed. I find best, first of all, I need to get on with who was the architect behind it. A fellow by the name of Willard Northup. He was born in Hancock, Michigan in 1887. That's a few tens of miles north, just north of our Daggett Moravian Church in the Upper Peninsula. Yes, it's on US 41, the road to Miami. They know. And Willard Northup, his father moved the family to Asheville by 1900. What was the big talk of the town in Asheville, even in 1900, 5 years after it was opened up? What's the biggest building in Asheville? Thank you, Biltmore. And where else can you learn architecture than looking over the shoulder of those workers? Oh my goodness. Willard Northup then settled in a very prosperous city of Salem and Winston in the 1907 and 8, and began almost immediately building houses for Brother Bonson on 5th Street. The Bonson House, now Spring House Restaurant. A bunch of houses for the Renolda Estate, and the 1912 City Hall of Salem. Looks kind of Moravian. He knew what he was doing. Let's see. Also, just after the Salem Church, this is the East Salem Church, known as Freeze Memorial Church, a nice English Gothic with a tower. He was multi-talented. And here's what he came up with: Rontaler Memorial Building, which was, let's use the words of Edward Rontaler. For 1912, much of the effort and interest of Home Church have gone to the building enterprise. It was resolved upon on February 26th and August 4th The contract for the new organ, gift of Hannah Sievers, was made to the Kimball Company, the organ that lots of people sneer at. I don't know why. On June 8th, the work of excavation for the new Sunday school building was begun. That's before the August 4th meeting actually saying, yes, we shall rise up and build. And the first bricks were laid by the two little boys, J. Kenneth Fold Jr. and Edward Rontaler Jr. Remember those Genworth commercials on television? Little Edward Rontaler, 102 years old. Yeah, that Edward Rontaler. Building contract undertaken by Fogel Brothers, and the cornerstone of the Rontaler Memorial Building. Yes, they named it after their prior minister, Edward Rontaler Sr. Edward Jr. is the son of Howard Rontaler, son of Edward Sr. The cornerstone of the was laid on October 20th with appropriate services. Now, let's see. Here is that Rontaler Memorial Building, right next to Frederick William Marshall's church, on the north side of Frederick William Marshall's church. Look what Brother Architect Northup did with the facade of that building, the west facade of that building. Let's see, do I have a... Yeah. Here's the home church. There's that west facade. He knew how to copy. But the one thing he did do was to have elongated, or as they call it in architectural terms, attenuated windows, adopting Brother E.A. Vogler's. And here is what it looked like on the inside, the assembly room. I remember being in that room and thinking it was the spookiest place I'd ever been in. And there was a skylight opening up, so it was very bright and open seeming, but it always looked spooky to me. Now let's see. We come to 1913 and the opening of the home church, the Rontaler Memorial Building, on June 15th. It was opened with impressive services. We had Bishop Hassa from the British province, and the building with its Sunday school, Sunday social equipment is one of the most complete in the country. Brother Fowle had a very long entry, 2 pages worth, for the opening of that Rontaler Memorial Building. But the interesting part is at the very end of his entry, he makes mention that reference should be made likewise to the opening today of the new West End Methodist Episcopal Church of this city. That's that thing. It is a beautiful structure of the most approved pattern, so arranged as to combine both Sunday school and church auditorium into one when occasion requires. He also adds the First Presbyterian Church also dedicated their new organ for the first time that day of the opening of the Rontaler Memorial Building. It may be there was such building of the going on of churches in Winston-Salem that home church also thought maybe we should get on the bandwagon too. Possibly a third reason: Sunday school space, new organ, and where to place it, and maybe keeping up with the Episcopalians. Now, let's see. Got to come down to our very end, the opening up of the church building itself. What did we do in the renovation of 1912 and 1913? It was a major, major restructuring. We knocked out the north wall here to create the chancel where we finally put Sister Severs' organ. And we took the pastor's chairs and pulpit where they had been placed by Brother Fogler on the east wall and put them up right about here, about where the original ones were put in 1800. We reinstalled a curved, almost U-shaped balcony. Let's see, curved U-shaped balcony, and let's see, what else did we do? There was something else, I can't remember. There it is, the renovation. Brother Northup, Architect Northup, gave us a fine little Greek temple to go along with our very plain Moravian church building originally. He had us install pews from the American Pew Company, choir loft, and organ behind the pastor's chairs. Oh, organ console over here on the right-hand side. This is an earlier picture. And there's a later one where we moved the organ into the center. And real stained glass windows. Contrary to long time and determined claim that they had to be, they're so beautiful, they just had to be made in Germany. I'm sorry, no. They're purely American. 3 companies, Tiffany, John Lafarge, and the J&R Lamb Studio, all 3 perfected the opalescent style of making stained glass windows, and that was what was used by the Lamb Company to install our stained glass windows. And so there's our home church once again, concluding with Edward Rontaler saying that on November 30th, first Sunday of Advent, 1913, the reconstructed home church was reopened for worship. It has been arranged after the original plan of the church. Now, well, here's that north wall going across originally. Original plan of the church with the pulpit on the north side, pews circling around it on the ground floor, and a convenient gallery with the organ, the beautiful memorial windows, and the most modern equipment of lights and heat and ventilation, and vacuum cleaner outlet too. It forms a new abode for the home congregation and for its daughter churches. The new memorial building and the ancient exterior of the church have been admirably harmonized into one great structure, which henceforth will stand as one of the most notable edifices in the Moravian world. In fact, it has constituted a new era in Moravian architecture. There's Northup's design. New era, 1930s building. Oh, 1924, excuse me. This one on the left, that's Ardmore. This is Houstonville, a country congregation. Oh, the Baptists have now put a little Greek portico that covers the hood. I think they left the hood, if I remember correctly. Houstonville is in the Iredell County on US 21. It lasted only about 15 to 20 years. But it was definitely the 1912-1913 renovation was in fact a new era in Moravian architecture. I want to thank you all for your patience, and yes, a few brief words turned out to be a little bit more than that.